Ephesians 5 and basically said I would commit my life to you and die for you.
Being mindful of like bringing these moments to God and like actively like praying.
Now we living together and it's all this stuff popping up that is like, oh, this is when the classic, she changed. All right, welcome back for another episode of Bolden Matrimony. My name is Robert Bolden.
I am Kori Bolden.
My beautiful wife. How are you today?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing okay. You look good.
So do you. Thanks, babe.
Thank you. Today, we are talking about a topic that will hopefully come up often in marriage. Money. The money. This is the elephant in the room for some people. Some people talk about it often. Some people not at all. For us, it's been a topic of conversation that comes up pretty often.
Mm-hmm.
So we hinted at it on some of the previous videos, how we managed things and paid for the wedding specifically. But now that we are together in marriage, everything's in-house now. So that means that we have to be intentional about how we're going to divvy things up. So I just wanted to pose a question for you and for our audience, framing this discussion around should things be 50-50. So what is your take on that? For you guys, should it be 50-50? Or how do you think about that at all? What do you think, Kori?
Yeah. From what I've understood 50-50 to mean, because this is a very common topic of discussion on social media and just in culture in general. And it's like, from a financial standpoint, it's like I'm bringing half of what the household, the provision of the household, I guess, to the table, and the other spouse is bringing the other half of the provision.
Mm-hmm.
And I can understand where that comes from, especially in today's, in day and age where women are not just, back in the day, it was like women were the keepers of the home and, raising the kids, and the husband was the sole provider. Now things look a lot different. Women are in the workforce. Women are working. They're also, could be raising a family, children, and all of that. So I could see where the mindset of like 50-50 comes from, but how I look at it is more of like we're each bringing something of value to the table, and it's not just 50-50. It's I'm bringing 100% and you're bringing 100%. And I look at that from a more holistic perspective of like the whole person rather than just a financial aspect. But we're talking about money. So, yeah.
Yeah, so I would agree. If I had to answer the question myself, I don't think, well, let me clarify. I would say that I used to think that it was like a 50-50 thing. And I can say honestly today that I said that in error because, again, I feel like it's going to be a recurring theme that we talk about selfishness. So wait, the idea of 50-50 at its core is unfair out of the gate. We just talked about men are bigger, stronger. We are thinking capacity. Like we're just made differently, which means that, so that just means that logically we share more of the lion's share of the work. If we were to pick up a table, like, sure, you could help, but I'm going to be the one that takes the bulk of that to get it done. So to say, 50-50, it doesn't necessarily make sense because
it's not fully equal across the board.
it's gonna be skewed some way
Yeah.
or the other. So a better framework I would say is, like you said, 100. I bring 100% of myself. You bring 100% of yourself, and that doesn't mean that obviously, like Paul says, 1 Peter 3:7, he said, giving honor to the wife as the weaker vessel. That's not saying that you're
Less
like
valuable.
less valuable or weaker in the sense that you're beneath me. We are on the same page, making the ship go forward, and I honor you in that way.
Right.
However, we're just made different.
Yeah.
And there's beauty in that
There's
difference
beauty in
because
that.
it helps the ship to go in the way that it's supposed to go
Yeah.
when we understand
I
it.
mean, there's clearly a reason why we were not created the same way,
Right.
the exact same way.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
we complement one another. We each have our own strengths that complement
Right.
each other. So yeah.
100%. So the way that we were doing it before, just to get into some of our own ways of managing our money, we started
Let's
putting-
just talk about how that transition was, though.
Oh, yeah.
First, go ahead.
At what point though?
When we first got together, we kind of touched on this in a previous episode about like merging our finances because we were living in separate households. We weren't living together. We were, yeah, we just had things. We had our own systems for how we did things. We kind of started getting into a rhythm of merging when we were, planning the wedding. But then once we got married, it was like everything was like merged. And so that was definitely an adjustment. It was not fun.
No,
I would
it
not
wasn't.
say that it was fun, but
So I would say that we were at an advantage with this one just because I've mentioned in previous videos, I do financial planning for a living. So Kori was nice enough to hand over her life to me.
okay.
All of her, financial statements. I knew everything.
Yeah.
So I was pretty much like keeping tabs
It's in my
on
business.
in her budget and everything. So when it came time to plan a wedding and stuff, all I did was like, this is yours, this is mine. And at some point when we do get married, I'll just have to combine them. So that was very insightful. And for us, the iterations of us going about combining our finances have changed. Like, I feel like we've been married 3.5, 4 months or now, and we've changed it 3 times.
Yeah.
So the initial way that we looked at it, I would say was more 50-50 focused.
It was.
And there was so much, and you can talk more about it just from the woman's perspective, but I feel like it didn't allow for you to be fully comfortable with the situation. You still had a lot of questions. You still didn't feel really at peace about it, and how money was divvied up and how things were going. And from my side, it just felt clunky.
Yeah.
And like it didn't feel right. And it felt petty.
Yeah.
Like,
it's like, all right, you give this much for this, and then you get, and it was like we weren't doing it from we weren't coming from a petty place, but we were coming from what we knew.
Right.
And so it definitely did not feel comfortable. It didn't feel right. It just felt, I don't know, like something was always off, and we were always going back to the budget, like, okay. And it was like, from a practical standpoint, like things were just getting like kind of slipping through the crack. Like some things were just like, it was the cycle, the way the payroll cycles were coming. So we were just like, okay, we know that we have the money to cover like everything and some.
It was
but
a cash flow.
It was
Like, the money is the same, and we know we have the money, but the flow of money when things are coming out versus when they're coming in wasn't meshing.
Yeah, it wasn't flowing right. So, like you said, we went through different iterations of it, and now, we are in a really good spot.
Even before we got to where we are now, what we did to try and fix the original suggestion or way that we did things was to split it up. So like, all right, this time I'm going to handle like our bills, and then you handle this, and then the next time you handle the bills.
Yeah.
And that was like, it was a step
It was
in a different direction, but still petty.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
So how are things? Let's talk about how we have everything structured now.
Yeah, so now I think we, I can't. I guess we should have looked at this before we started the video, but I feel like this is biblical. Maybe it is. Y'all find the scripture for me, if you can quote it. But the man or me, I provide for the needs. So for the household, everything that we have that is essential, meaning the mortgage, meaning our insurances, meaning like all of the things,
bills,
all the bills that we have. My income covers our bills for them all. And then for your income, because all of the needs are covered, whatever we have from your income is therefore going to pay off whatever debt we have. Once we are totally done with debt, then that's just going straight to savings. So it's an addition rather than like the needs.
Yeah.
So basically I handle the needs, you handle the wants, or, pay off quickers.
Yeah.
And that has, you can talk from your perspective, how has that change been for you?
Oh, that has made me feel a lot. It was like something that I didn't know that I needed. It made me feel a lot more secure, to know that it really is a mental thing, to know that, okay, if God forbid something happens where I need to stop working or whatever, I know that our needs are met,
Right.
because everything is covered from Rob's income. Will things get a little tighter because of, what my income would be, or my cash flow would be kind of cut off at that point? Yes, but to know that all of our needs are covered, and we may need to, deprioritize some things or cut off some things, like, it just makes things a lot more clearer, and we can see clearly, okay, we have assignments for our money, for our income. It's like, the purpose of your money is to manage this. The purpose of my money is to manage this. And it's a smoother flow, and it brings a lot more peace.
Yeah.
Once we cracked that code, it was like, oh shoot.
From both sides, 'cause I felt that way as well, where it gave me, for men, we're always, or should be, forward thinking. So that highlighted to me that, oh, my income covers everything that we need. And therefore, if I go out and earn more, that means that our needs are still covered, but then we have more to put towards other things. And that's highly probable that that will happen.
Yeah.
But if you don't see it, the way that we were doing it, talking about cash flow, the money's the same, but you can't necessarily see where things are going. It's harder to really gauge what you need to do. So now I'm like locked in, like, oh, I can just go get this many clients and that'll generate this amount of revenue. And we'll be at this point to where, like, at some point, the ultimate goal is that you wouldn't have to work. If you want to, you can, but you'd have the option to, stay at home. And I think that is beautiful that we, again, going back to communication, talked about it, worked through our iterations of systems, and landed on something that works for the both of us.
Yeah, it really is. It's a cool thing to see, and be able to, and even think about, like, oh, we can invest in this, make this type of investment. And it, like you said, it really allows us to be more like forward thinking and see the bigger picture of how all of these things are working together.
Yeah.
So, for the long term. So, yeah. Do we have anything else?
I was just gonna say, just how we have sort of walked through, like, decisions on spending and things like that, because maybe that could we for you guys, we were thinking about making this like a series of videos, because I feel like we can break these out into many different topics.
Absolutely, yeah.
But how we have come to, if you guys didn't know, your sister was a spender. She was a spender
At my
when
core,
I met her.
I still am.
She was a spender when I met her.
Unrefined.
She's a refined spender now. So
Yeah, I think a lot more about the impact, like, and should this be a priority right now?
Mhm.
Like, is this important? Do I need this? Like, my decision making behind spending is my mindset is a lot different. And God knew that I needed that because I was a spender.
yeah, because it's a lot of psychology behind how we think about money, how we deal with money. A lot of it is probably in your subconscious to where you just do it because that's what you've seen.
Yeah.
Parents have done it a certain way forever, and now you're sort of just taking over those.
And
same-
it's accessible.
Yeah,
There's so many different ways. Like, now you have Afterpay,
Right.
like all those, which is like on the service, like, oh, okay, yeah, I can pay $50 here and $50 there. But then it's like, from a cash flow standpoint, it's a thorn it can be a thorn in your side, because it's like, dang, I forgot about, like, those are things that you can forget about. And so yeah, definitely has helped me think a lot differently about money and how I approach it and treat it.
Right.
And I mean, even from a biblical perspective, just the Bible talks so much about
It's like
money
I think
and
it's the
stewardship.
second most mentioned topic in the Bible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So just thinking of it from a perspective of, like, this is actually not even really my money. This is something that God has entrusted to us in our household to manage and steward over. And so we need to do that responsibly and not selfishly, but just thinking of it and approaching it in a way that is wise.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, and I think it'll be a beautiful thing as we begin to build this out even more. As I earn more and the needs are even further met, and now we have more additional things to do. Like, one of the biggest goals, us in our household don't want to just make money for the sake of making money. We do want to advance what's going on in this world, and by being impactful and giving, and that's how we represent our love. And the Father's love in the earth. So from that perspective, I think we do have to be diligent. We do have to, communicate, and share. If you're feeling a little anxious about things, if you need a little extra spending money, it's okay to spend. Like, let me just say that. It's okay to have buy a new pair of shoes, or that's cool. Like, don't be beating your spouse across the head for their purchases and stuff like that. But it does have to be done responsibly.
Yeah.
And for the both of you, where purpose is unknown, abuse is inevitable. That goes for every dollar that you own. And for that money, if you are giving it some type of task, whether it be giving, whether it be for the rent, whether it be for the bills, or paying off a little bit of debt, just make sure you have a plan. Because if you don't rule it, it will rule you. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's good. That was a mic drop.
Sweet. All right, then. That works for me. I mean, see what works for you. Like, I don't want to be blind to the situations where the man's income in the household may not be able to meet all of the needs, right? That could very well be a thing. Don't feel like you're deficient by any means. You guys just have to talk through what that means. And, your income would have to go towards the needs for this season. While we put a plan together to, work it out. So,
I think that, the main thing is communicating and figuring out what works for your household. Figuring out what works for your household. But as long as y'all are on one accord and constantly communicating and seeing what works, what doesn't work, it all works together.
So we asked the question at the beginning, should it be 50-50? Now that we've talked about it, do you still feel that way? Do you think differently?
And what does 50-50 mean to you? Because it can have different meanings behind it. So I think that would be even better question is, like, what does 50-50 mean to you from your perspective?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Let us know in the comments. We like hearing from you guys.
Yeah.
It's really cool to be able to see how you're sort of thinking through these things. So let us know in the comments, like, subscribe, share, And this was a good one. We hope to see you guys on the next one. Have a great night.